Hello and welcome. Today is April 25th, 2025. We will be going over Elizabeth Little's cross-examination of the prosecution's medical examiner. I believe his last name is Fowler. And I just felt like she made some really good points. I did not listen to the entirety of her cross-examination, but I listened to a little bit. And if you guys remember, I read the defense's motion to exclude Karen Reed's BAC level. I think it was about a month ago that they filed that motion because they determined that the Good Samaritan Hospital was the source of Karen Reed's BAC level result. The Good Samaritan Hospital were the ones to obtain Karen Reed's alleged BAC level. And again, guys, as I have said over and over again, I do not trust the BAC level we were given, the official BAC level we were given by the prosecution, even if it came from a hospital. Because again, the McCabe's and the Alberts were friends and were related to first responders from the Good Samaritan Hospital. Okay? It's like, I can't trust anybody there. I can't trust anybody in Canton. And even Carrie Roberts herself, within the last few days during the retrial, said that Canton PD, Canton Fire, and the Canton EMTs, they always go to Good Samaritan Hospital, right? They always go to Good Samaritan Hospital, right? And we know that some of those first responders were friends or were related to the McCabe's and the Alberts. So again, I don't trust the BAC level, and I believe it's false science, much like everything else this prosecution has presented, just false, misleading, fake science, right? The ones with the real science are the defense team. They're the ones with the real forensics here in this case. And again, I have followed countless cases over the years, right? And again, with a prosecution that doesn't have a chain of custody for a single piece of evidence, no, I'm not going to trust the BAC level they allege Karen Reed had that morning. And again, guys, they accused Karen Reed of having done this to John O'Keefe at 12:45 a.m. Karen Reed's BAC level wasn't tested until 9 a.m. Like, there's no way they would have had an accurate result of her BAC level to begin with. If she did this at 12:45 a.m., they would have had to test her at 12:45 a.m., right? Otherwise, throw the BAC level out, right? It's like theoretical at this point. It's not even like exact science. And when you're testing someone's BAC level in real life, like in the reality you and I live in, it's exact science. You know, there's no fudging the BAC level. That entire testing process is exact science. But the prosecution is presenting it as if it's exact science when it is not. When you consider the timeline, and you consider that whoever gave her that BAC, whoever conducted the test for her and gave us the BAC level, could have been related to the McCabe's and the Alberts. But before we go over Elizabeth Little's cross, I want to show you this video, and I'm just going to let you watch it.
Karen Reed's Lexus is now being loaded back onto a tow truck to take it away. It was parked here in front of the house at 34 Fairview Road just a short time ago, where jurors were able to see it. This time, compared to the first trial last year, it was at a different location. Last year, it was parked up closer to the end of the driveway. This time, the Lexus was parked near here, the flagpole, where John O'Keefe's body was found.
I will let it play again in case you did not catch what he just said.
Karen Reed's Lexus is now being loaded back onto a tow truck to take it away. It was parked here in front of the house at 34 Fairview Road just a short time ago, where jurors were able to see it. This time, compared to the first trial last year, it was at a different location. Last year, it was parked up closer to the end of the driveway. This time, the Lexus was parked near here, the flagpole, where John O'Keefe's body was found.
Like, who is trying to embolden their case, right? Who has been so insecure about their case that they would even attempt to exclude ARCA? Some real experts. For the prosecution to deliberately place the SUV at the scene for the jury members to see when they go on a field trip to 34 Fairview, during today's hearing. It's like, whose idea was it to present it like that to the jury? To place the SUV in such a way that it just happens to support the prosecution's theory? Like, who wants to give the jurors a better visual of the prosecution's theory? And I know Yannetti was there, according to some of the reporters who were there. And maybe David Yannetti didn't have a say. Maybe David Yannetti just had to be there to supervise, and he couldn't really dictate where the SUV was going to be parked. But if I were Karen Reed's attorney and I was observing where the tow truck driver was dropping the SUV off, I would have objected. Or I would have been like, yeah, you can park it there. Yeah, let everyone take a picture, whatever. Let the jury members look at it, take notes. Sure. But then the defense gets a turn. The defense gets to park it where the defense was able to park it during the first trial, which is toward the end of the driveway, where Karen Reed actually was, where Karen Reed dropped John O'Keefe off. I'm just saying, I would have fought a little bit. And I'm not saying David Yannetti couldn't, or I'm not saying David Yannetti could fight it. I'm just saying what I would have done. I would have raised some hell today. Because it's not fair. It's not fair that the jury members get to see the SUV positioned in a way that supports the prosecution's theory. If the jurors don't also get to see the SUV positioned in such a way that supports the defense's defense of their client. So let's look at Elizabeth Little cross-examination of medical examiner Gary Fowler. And I am relying on Law and Crime today, reluctantly, because of the audio and the video. Otherwise, I would look for another independent feed. There were, some of the independent channels streaming the retrial have a lot of ads, and it's stressful. It's stressful when you're just trying to watch the trial, or you're just trying to listen to the trial. But anyway, let's listen and observe Elizabeth Little kick ass.
Good afternoon, Dr. Fowler.
Oh, good afternoon.
The Good Samaritan Lab is a clinical lab, not a forensic lab. Is that right?
Correct.
And hospitals are not in the legal business of calculating an individual's blood alcohol concentration. Is that right?
I would say 99.9% of the time we are not in the legal business. We are testing alcohol for the diagnosis of alcohol intoxication. But occasionally a case may come, very rare, to a hospital, and it ends up being a legal case. It's not common. I think uncommon.
And you'd agree that there are differences between screening tests that are conducted at hospitals and forensic tests that are conducted by law enforcement, right?
Yes.
The purpose of testing in a clinical setting is to assist in the diagnosis and treatment of a patient, right?
Correct.
And physicians need to analyze blood quickly. They need to get the results so they can see what's in a patient's system and then effectively and efficiently treat that patient, right?
Correct.
Whereas in a forensic setting, tests for blood alcohol concentration are designed to produce results that are reliable and credible for use in court. Correct?
Correct.
You testified earlier today that your lab is accredited by CAP, which is the College of American Pathologists. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
But CAP is a clinical laboratory accreditation, not a forensic accreditation, right?
We don't have the forensic accreditation for Good Samaritan.
In fact, Good Samaritan has never been investigated or accredited by any forensic accreditation team to ensure that you perform all of your tests with the integrity necessary to support results in court, right?
We've never had the forensic accreditation, but we have very good quality lab results, which I could go into further.
And guys, please understand that having good laboratory, good quality results is not forensically credible. You have to be one or the other. Either you are forensically accredited or you're not. And the Massachusetts State Police do have a laboratory that is forensically accredited. Usually, the Massachusetts State Police would conduct their own testing, alcohol testing, to determine someone's BAC level through their forensically accredited laboratory. But in this case, guys, if you don't remember my video pertaining to the defense's motion to exclude Karen Reed's BAC level, in this instance, the Massachusetts State Police relied on the results from this laboratory, from the Good Samaritan's laboratory, the Good Samaritan Hospital, the same hospital that Carrie Roberts just 2 days ago said everybody goes to Good Samaritan Hospital. When there's an emergency in Canton, Massachusetts, the fire department, the paramedics, the police send people to Good Samaritan Hospital. Good Samaritan Hospital does not have a forensically accredited laboratory to conduct alcohol testing. But the Massachusetts State Police relied on the results obtained by Good Samaritan Hospital, again, which is not forensically accredited. And the prosecution is leaning one of the charges against Karen Reed on that BAC level that is not forensically accredited, right? Karen Reed's fate is on the balance here. Karen Reed's fate is being threatened here by a BAC level that the Massachusetts State Police relied on in order to push to the prosecution's, to the district attorney's office and say, hey, this is her BAC level. We got it from Good Samaritan Hospital. It's not what we usually do, but just fucking use it. It's not forensically sound. It's not forensically accredited, but let's roll with it, right? This is Karen Reed's freedom on the line. And who knows if that BAC level is the real fucking thing. Again, guys, the McCabe's and the Alberts are related and are friends with first responders who take patients to Good Samaritan Hospital. There are also friends and family members of the McCabe's and the Alberts who work at the Good Samaritan Hospital. Why did the MSP veer off from protocol in this instance? Why did the Massachusetts State Police choose to push these charges alongside the prosecution against Karen Reed using a BAC level obtained by the Good Samaritan Hospital and not a Massachusetts State Police forensically accredited laboratory, which again is protocol. These questions that Elizabeth Little is asking are crucial, and I really hope the jury members are picking up what she's putting down. And if you guys didn't watch that video where I read the defense's motion to exclude the BAC level, I will include it in the description below.
But you've never been accredited by a forensic accreditation team, right?
No.
And the lab at Good Samaritan has never been accredited by the ANSI, which is the National Accreditation Board known as ANAB. Are you familiar with that organization?
No.
Are you aware that ANAB is the forensic accreditation body that in the United States that ensures that laboratories' procedures meet the minimum standards necessary to ensure results are reliable and credible for use in court?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now, the most
It was an excellent, long-winded question, but it was a compound question, and that's why Judge Bev sustained it. But excellent question and great points by Liza Little.
reliable method of forensic ethanol testing is called headspace gas chromatography, or HSGC. Are you familiar with that process?
Yes.
And HSGC is the method that's used by forensic labs to test for blood alcohol content, right?
Correct.
And that's because forensic tests require the testing of whole blood for the presence of alcohol, right?
Correct.
Can you briefly, just for the jury, describe sort of the difference between a whole blood test and a serum test?
Sure. So whole blood, to put it simply, when you have your blood drawn, you see the fluid coming out all red. That's whole blood. We don't do anything to it. We don't spin it down. We don't centrifuge it. That is whole blood. That is the specimen of choice for forensic blood ethanol testing. Hospitals, on the other hand, our methodology, which is just as good as the forensic headspace gas chromatography, is based on looking at the serum or the plasma. So we don't, that's what when I explained that we need to centrifuge it, take the liquid portion off the top. So in the hospital, we test it on the serum or the plasma. Now, did you ask me the difference? You want me to go into the difference?
That's enough, Doctor. Thank you. I'll ask some additional questions to kind of clarify. And in a forensic lab, they actually require the testing of whole blood, correct?
Correct.
And HSGC directly measures ethanol in the blood.
Correct.
And this method is designed to be accurate and reliable for forensic purposes for use in legal proceedings, correct?
Correct.
But the testing in this case was performed using the hospital's clinical chemistry machine instead of a forensically defensible method like HSGC, right?
Correct.
And again, guys, that was all in the defense's motion. So even though Judge Bev denied the motion conveniently on behalf of the prosecution, in favor of the prosecution and against the defense, Elizabeth Little still gets to argue it here, which is great. She still gets to argue the points that were brought up in that motion.
And that clinical chemistry machine performs what you just testified to, a serum test, right?
Serum or plasma.
Serum or plasma. And hospitals use serum or plasma testing because it's actually quicker and more efficient than HSGC, right?
Yes, it's less labor intensive. It's easy to automate, but at the same time, very, very good and very accurate.
But serum testing does not actually measure alcohol directly. It instead.
So interesting that he looked at his nails in that moment. What is that body language? I can't make sense of it, and I usually can. What is that? It's almost like he's not fazed or he's bored. Like, you're in the middle of trial, dude. Like, you're a high profile case, and you're just gonna glance at your nails, like, while Elizabeth Little is asking you a question. and it's weird that he does that right after he says it's pretty accurate. But again, guys, if it was accurate, then why is it not forensically accredited if it's so accurate?
Instead measures the presence of what's called NADH, right? Say that again. Yes, I'll repeat that. That was my fault. Serum testing does not actually measure alcohol directly. Instead, it measures the presence of NADH. Is that right?
Almost.
Well, NADH is a byproduct of alcohol, right?
Correct. I can go into the testing how methodology that we use to explain it if you want me to.
Well, serum testing measures the presence of NADH, correct?
It measures the rate of change of NADH production, so it doesn't actually look at just NADH, and it measures the rate of production, and I can go into more detail on that. Alcohol testing in the lab is correct.
I'll ask you some additional questions about NADH, and we'll get there.
Yeah.
So you can do this now, but let the doctor answer his question fully next question, okay? And the following questions.
Doctor, the higher the NADH in a patient's system, the higher.
I don't think that was necessary, right? Elizabeth Little was correct to cut him off because he answered the question and then he was going into other stuff. And if you guys are familiar with the court process, again, whether it's civil, family, or criminal, you're supposed to just answer the question as succinct as you can. And if you want to add more detail to it, you have to kind of wait until you're prompted to, or you can ask, can I elaborate? And it's up to the attorney asking you the questions to give you that permission, right? Because there's supposed to be order in the court, right? So you can't just have people on the stand answering the question however they want to. And who knows if the medical examiner here was coached by this prosecution, right? Like, he could be attempting to explain something that the prosecution wants him to explain in an attempt to confuse the jury even more, right? So I'm saying Elizabeth Little was correct, and she was within her right as an attorney to control the medical examiner as he's sitting on the stand speaking. She has the power as the one conducting the cross-examination, as the one conducting the questioning. Elizabeth Little has the authority to cut him off and say, that's not what I asked you. I'm going to ask you a different question. Judge Bev did not need to speak up. You know, even if the prosecution objected, Judge Bev should have known for herself. Again, every judge is an attorney at some point. Judge Bev would have known for herself that Elizabeth Little didn't do anything wrong, right?
The serum test result, correct?
That may not be correct, no. It's the rate of change of NADH production based on our methodology. I can go into that. So our test system is a little bit different than the forensic testing system, but it's also very good and very accurate, and almost when we compare our methodology to the Headspace, we get the exact same results, and when we compare and with peer laboratory comparisons. But what we do is and I think
you guys see that? You guys see that? Like, he's fluffing it up. Like, was he coached? What's going on here? Why is he trying to sell this testing process, this methodology that the Good Samaritan Hospital utilizes in their alcohol testing? Like, why is he trying to convince the jury that it's accurate and it's very good? Like, again, guys, it does not matter how accurate he says it is. It does not matter if it's very good. Is it forensically accredited? Because that's the standard for this criminal court case. right? It's supposed to be scientific. It's supposed to be as exact science can be, right? It's supposed to be forensic. That's the standard for this courtroom, for any criminal case. You have to rely on forensically sound evidence. So it doesn't matter if it's accurate or if it's very good. It's not forensically accredited. And that's the point Elizabeth Little is trying to make. But notice how this medical examiner is like shrugging it off, like, we're still really good. You can totally rely on what we do.
I think the jury needs to know this. Maybe some of you might understand the chemistry behind it. But we do, we take the patient's sample, and it's based on, we add, because when there's alcohol in the specimen, we add, actually, in the test system, alcohol dehydrogenase. It's the same enzyme that's in the patient's body. In addition, we add a surplus of NAD to it. NAD is similar to NADH. They get converted back and forth. So when we put it on our test system, it's alcohol dehydrogenase is in there. And what happens is, when there's alcohol, it combines with NAD that we add to it. It creates NADH. And then in our machine, there's a spectrophotometer, which can monitor the rate of NADH production over baseline. And we use, there's a something that measures, a photometer that measures the NADH production. It looks at light in this physics and looks at 340 nanometers, and it's pretty accurate. It will monitor, it will tell you, it will tell the system how much NADH is produced, and that amount is directly proportional to the alcohol in the patient's sample. So it's a very, very accurate test. But there are some limitations that I can go into.
So wait for another question.
Okay.
Next question, Ms. Little.
Yes, so serum testing can be subject to errors, right? And there are limitations.
There are some limitations that I can explain, just like headspace gas chromatography may have some limitations too. But I can go into them.
Yeah, next question.
What are some of the limitations of
the
serum testing?
Okay. So the serum test, as with many tests in the laboratory, different things can interfere with our laboratory tests. And the three most common ones, which are unlikely to affect ethanol testing, is we abbreviated HIL. We want to look at those three things. One is hemolysis, which is H, and the other one is icterus, which is high bilirubin, and the third is L for lipids. High lipids will interfere with alcohol testing or with any testing based on that same methodology. Our machine, the Rose-Kobash machine, and all the machines out in the market today are very sophisticated. If we have elevated levels of any H or I or L, it will flag it and raise the potential for a problem. The next thing on the list is that our alcohol testing is not absolutely specific for ethanol. There are two possible other alcohols that can cross-react. One is propanol and butanol. But then it goes clinical history. Did the patient ingest those two alcohols? And third is there's some unusual hematologic malignancies like Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia that can interfere. So always have to correlate with the clinical situation. The next one, sometimes there can be patients who make make their own alcohol. So very rarely, some patients may truly have a positive result. That could be from our test or Headspace. They make their own, so we have to rule that out. It's a rare condition. And the next one is one that's in the literature, which is LDH and lactic acid. If a patient has a markedly elevated LDH or lactic acid, those one is an enzyme, and the other one is an acid, that can cause false positives. Now,
I do appreciate, gotta give credit where credit's due. I do appreciate how knowledgeable he appears to be about these anomalies that can happen, these error results that can happen. He seems to have experience conducting these tests and what to look for when conducting these tests. But again, guys, if you're paying attention, it's not forensically accredited. So nothing he is saying actually matters, despite all the knowledge he has about the methodology that the Good Samaritan Hospital relies on. It doesn't matter. Again, it's out of protocol. The Massachusetts State Police and this prosecution are going outside of protocol, relying on this medical examiner, relying on the BAC level that, again, was obtained through a process that is not forensically accredited.
If I could stop you there, Doctor. I think those were the four that you identified, the four limitations: the lactic acid, the hematite. If I could just
go ahead and ask your next question.
If I could ask you a few more questions about LDH and lactic acid.
Sure.
You're aware, Dr. Fowler, of the medical literature establishing that the presence of LDH and lactic acid can lead to falsely elevated serum readings, correct?
Correct.
And that's because lactic acid, or LDH, actually forms NADH.
Lactic acid, I'll have to go into a little bit of chemistry. Lactic acid and LDH, lactate dehydrogenase, they both act on each other. And LDH and lactic acid needs NAD plus to break it down. So in theory, when you're testing a serum, a plasma for blood alcohol, if there's extra LDH or high levels of LDH, high levels of lactic acid, you add it to the test system, and then Roche throws in, or Siemens throws in the NAD, it will form NADH. That was first documented, I think, back in the older versions of these ethanol testings back in the 1990s, when they stumbled on, they were looking for biomarkers or reasons in kids with SIDS, little babies, and they
Just gonna stop it here because to me he's veering off from the answer here. He doesn't necessarily have to go into the history. He just needs to present it the way in which it's conducted today's science. He doesn't have to go into the history. I'm surprised that the defense is not like cutting him off. They're not objecting. I don't think this is an effective moment during today's hearing. And he could very well be losing the jury members going into all this. That to me isn't really necessary.
They found that two of these babies had a positive alcohol. But
Doctor, if I could just ask the next question, if that's okay.
Sorry.
So in other words, NADH, studies have found, can actually be formed by certain biomechanical processes other than the presence of alcohol, right?
Yes.
Are you aware that the National Institute of Health has found that liver diseases, kidney diseases, muscle injury, trauma, and even anemia are some of the health conditions that can lead to a rise in serum LDH levels?
Yes.
Are you aware that Ms. Reed was severely anemic in January of 2022?
Sustained.
Are you aware that the medical literature has also found that patients suffering from multiple sclerosis have a twofold increase in NADH levels as compared to controls.
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
I haven't read anything specifically related to the NADH level, but but I want to go back to the point where our laboratory, our testing is not based.
Let him
No, Judge Bev. Look,
finish his answer.
It's not.
No. Again, guys, Elizabeth Little, as the person with the authority to conduct the questioning here, has every right to cut him off and say, please answer my question. Let's stick with the question. He thinks he has autonomy here, this medical examiner. He thinks he has like the freedom to veer off from the question and say, like, can I go back to what I was talking about previously? Like, no, dude. No, it's Liza Little's time, right? She's on the stage right now, and you have to just answer what she's asking you, but I want to give Elizabeth Little some props here because she is presenting some amazing variables that this dude did not consider, that the Good Samaritan Hospital did not consider, and that the Massachusetts State Police did not consider. That considering Karen Reed's medical conditions, multiple medical conditions, her BAC level wouldn't be reliable anyway. So when we consider the prosecution's theory that Karen Reed did this at 12:45 a.m. and that her blood alcohol level was not tested until 9 a.m., like 9 hours later, right? Like it's unreliable, like with that detail alone. But then we consider Karen Reed's multiple medical conditions, which are variables that influence the result of the testing, right? Like just throw the BAC level out. I keep saying it. I have said it in multiple videos. Throw it out.
It's the rate of change of NADH. So if somebody has NADH on board, I believe it's not going to affect the result. It's the rate of change. And it basically, back to the anemia, I haven't read or heard of that.
That was stricken. That was not allowed.
It all goes back to the lactic acid and the LDH. The NADH doesn't matter. So looking at multiple sclerosis patients, they can have elevated LDH and lactic acid, but it's not to the extent that it can interfere with the alcohol levels. There was a study maybe 7-10 years ago.
Your Honor, there's no question pending.
You asked him about a study, if he was aware of the studies.
I asked, and that's a yes or no question. And he's...
All right, Doctor, we're going to hold that there for you and ask the next question.
Doctor, have you reviewed the August 21st, 2013 peer-reviewed article entitled Serum NAD through Disease Course in Multiple Sclerosis, which was sponsored by the Center of Healthy Brain Aging by the University of New South Wales? Which...
Can you do that again and slow down, please?
Sure. Doctor, have you reviewed the August 21st, 2013 peer-reviewed article entitled Serum NAD Levels through Disease Course in Multiple Sclerosis, which was sponsored by the Center for Healthy Brain Aging by the School of Psychiatry at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, which specifically found that patients suffering from multiple sclerosis have a twofold increase in NADH levels as compared to controls?
Objection.
I'll strike the part of what the article held. Is he aware of the article?
No, I'm not, to be honest, no.
Dr. Fowler, did you consider Ms. Reed's anemia and multiple sclerosis condition when you conducted the alcohol test on January 29th, 2022?
No, we don't. No.
And again, serum tests like the ones conducted in this case don't test for ethanol. They only test for NADH, right?
We test for the rate of change of NADH production.
And Doctor, you did a number of other tests on Ms. Reed on January 29th, 2022. You tested for additional drugs, not just alcohol, correct?
Correct.
And all of those results were negative.
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay.
So I'll conclude it here. Amazing work from Liza Little, as always. She's like a graceful, like a graceful defense attorney with a strong bite, with with a strong attack. You know, I'm just so impressed by her, and she's young, and she's a new attorney, but she's kicking ass, and like ever since she entered this case alongside Alan Jackson, it's just good vibes. There's just good vibes with Elizabeth Little. And she's so gentle that at times I've even witnessed Judge Bev be charmed by Liza Little. It seems like Judge Bev has a soft spot for Liza Little, but nobody else on the defense team. Like, she doesn't have a soft spot for anybody else on the defense team. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. And again, I'll leave the links to everything in the description below.